Heat are looking to improve this summer, but might not be able to acquire the superstar they need. But there are big names available, even if they come with some concerns. But if they can't get the brand new vehicle of their dreams, will they at least get a used car to get around town? We'll break down the options on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And for daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast app. Have a really fun show for you today. We're talking about a bunch of different under-the-radar trade targets that the Heat can explore this summer. We're going to hit a bunch of names here. We spent a lot of time talking about the big names that could be traded this summer, right? We know the big names, Giannis, Kevin Durant, we even talked about on Monday, but we're pretty sure that there are going to be teams looking to trade big money players to save some cap space this summer, even if those big name players aren't available or if Miami misses out on those guys. So I thought we could talk about some of those more under the radar guys today and whether or not they make sense as backup plans for the Heat. So again, like you were talking about, David, at the start, not the whales, not blockbuster trade additions here, not the guys that we've been talking about for most of the summer. Those are more like your brand new Porsches, right? But sometimes you just don't got the juice to go into that dealership. And those are those superstars. These are more like the stars that you could drive off the used car lot, a little past their prime, definitely some miles on them. Still useful though, and they could be had at a value. So that's what we're talking about. We're looking at the used car lot of stars this offseason. Not plan A. This is probably plan B or maybe even after that, but it's worth exploring here. And I want to jump in right away with the first name, which might surprise some people. DeMar DeRozan. Jake Fisher reported a couple days ago that the Kings are going to listen to offers for DeRozan. That part isn't that surprising. We know that the Heat tried to get DeRozan. That might even be overselling it. They explored the idea of getting DeRozan last summer, and they couldn't do it because of where they were against the salary cap. But they were interested, at least, in the idea of pairing DeMar DeRozan with Jimmy Butler. They couldn't get it done. DeRozan signs with the Kings on a 3-year deal. And after a year of Sacramento, their season went sideways. They have to trade De'Aaron Fox. They fire their coach. Everything's now, I guess they're open to exploring trading DeRozan. He's 35 years old. He's under contract this coming season for $24.7 million, $25.7 million after that. So it's not this, we're not talking about some crazy money. This isn't max $50 million a year. You know, it's a decent amount of money, but that's less than what Terry Rozier makes. You know what I mean? So 35 years old, averaged 22 points per game last season. Definitely not prime DeMar DeRozan, but an interesting name nonetheless. What do you think?
Obviously still has some value there. And it just seems like a name that Miami would definitely explore. They typically do kind of always circle back to their guys. Like we're talking about Kevin Durant for what feels like the third offseason out of the last 5 or so where KD is an option. But we know that there's interest from the Miami side of things, and there's always been interest from Miami side of things when it comes to DeRozan as well. As you mentioned, they were pursuing him or at least exploring the possibility last year. You circle back now a year later and say, does it make sense for this version of the team? You're looking for scoring. You're looking for a complementary player. I think it makes sense. I can't believe I'm talking myself into this, but I think the idea.
It only took 4 minutes of the podcast to talk ourselves into DeRozan. Let's go.
Look. You're just not. If you can't get that superstar player,
right?
And I think we saw what we're going to get from Wiggins, and that's just not enough to complement Bam and Tyler. This is a tweaked version of running it back. I think you're going to sacrifice some defense that you have with Wiggins for much more consistent and reliable offense in DeMar DeRozan. He still shoots the ball well, exploring that three-point range a little bit more, not quite really good at it. Shot, 33% last year on a higher volume of threes than he has throughout his career. Still gets to the line, though, so he still draws contact. We've seen it a number of times against Miami. He seems to get the big shot down the stretch or gets a big foul call down the stretch. You know what you're going to get from DeMar DeRozan. And when you use this term in describing James Harden, that's an innings eater, right? And wouldn't you say the same thing about DeRozan? He's a guy you could just throw on the floor with anybody, and you know he's going to get 22. 20-ish, 20 to 25 any given night. That's certainly the possibility. Maybe a good night where he goes 40, maybe an off night where he goes for 15 or so, but very, very consistent, reliable offense. Miami hasn't had consistent, reliable offense in a long time. At no point in time during the Jimmy Butler era would you say that they had consistent, reliable offense. It was always these games in the mud and everything else. And so when you look at Miami's defense, which you expect to still be at a high level, depending on what you have to sacrifice to acquire a player like DeRozan, and I don't think it's that much. That being the case, you just taking on this offensively gifted player, and he kind of fits what Miami does in terms of have the spacing, you have the three-point shooting. Let him go to work in the mid-range. That's where he's comfortable. That's where he does his work, and that's where I think that's where you want to maximize what DeRozan can do. And then you're not sacrificing that much defensively. There could be some concerns between Hero and DeRozan being starters defensively, but I think for the most part, Miami's front court of Adebayo and Ware, assuming you can keep Khalil in a deal like this, should be enough to compensate for any issues that you have there with that starting lineup. And especially if you were able to sign Davion Mitchell.
Well, first of all, I want to say the Khalil Ware piece. You're not trading Ware in a DeMar DeRozan deal. You can't do it. To me, you can't give up any of the young guys, the draft picks, not for DeMar DeRozan at this stage of his career. I have a trade idea for DeMar DeRozan that I think works for both teams. But before I get to that, there's two things here that stand out about DeRozan to me. Number one, he is still an awesome offensive player. He's incredibly efficient. His shooting percentages were a little bit down last year, but that's because Sacramento asked him to space the floor because, fun fact, DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, turned out that didn't work, just like basically everybody said when they signed DeRozan. So his percentages went down because they were asking him to space the floor a little bit more than he's used to. But in Miami, I don't know. Maybe he would be asked to do a little bit of that. He was still a pretty efficient player, still shoots over 50% from two-point range. We know what he can do in the mid-range. He's one of the few players that it should be and is allowed to take as many shots from that area as he wants because he's just so good at it. And you look at we talked about the dunks and threes offensive EPM last week when we were talking about something. I forget. But basically, it's a catch-all offensive stat. How good are you offensively, and how do you impact your team? Kevin Durant was a plus 2.5 in dunks and threes offensive EPM metric. Durant, a 2.5. DeMar DeRozan, 2.4. So just a hair below Durant offensively. Now, I think that's a little misleading. I don't think Durant is just a hair better than DeRozan. I think Durant is way better than DeRozan. But it still speaks to the impact that DeRozan was able to make last year for a Kings team that wasn't very good when he was a little bit miscast. Here's the other thing that stands out to me about DeRozan. You mentioned innings eater, 100%. This is how many games he's played the last several seasons. 77, 79, 74, 76, 61 during that shortened COVID year, 68 during that other shortened COVID year, 77, 80. This guy plays basketball games. This guy plays basketball games. He can run a little bit of pick and roll for you. My question with DeRozan is, can he be the number one option on offense in Miami? Because that's what they're looking for. Because if he's going to just come in and be a second option to Tyler Hero, that doesn't work. But to your point, David, could you throw the ball to him in the mid-post and run your offense through that, where he's hitting Tyler Hero coming off a split cut, or creating enough space for Bam to get into that dunker spot, or Khalil Ware to get into that dunker spot and throw that lob? I think DeRozan's a slightly underrated passer. He's not an awesome one. I think it's part of his game that doesn't get talked about. Right. Could you run your offense through DeMar DeRozan for the regular season, for 82 regular season games? Throw it into him, go to work, take the shots you want as just your initial trigger. I don't know that you can run an incredibly efficient offense that way, but it could probably be better than 21st in offensive rating.
It seems like it's a step back, though. I mean, given the fact that they turned over so much of the offense because of the Jimmy situation and everything else to Tyler, I don't know that they're willing to take that step back for a different player that hasn't earned that kind of equity with the team like Jimmy had. I mean, that seemed like it was a source of conflict, and this is about Jimmy Butler. DeMar joins this team in August, September, right before camp, and you're all of a sudden going to say, you know what, let's give him the ball and let him go to work, and then everybody else kind of has to play off. Bam, I think, again, given Bam and how he approaches offense, I don't think that would be a concern. He'll figure his out. He'll get his when he does. But with Tyler, you're kind of asking him and saying, listen, we know you just had the best season of your career, and now we want you to change it yet again.
Would it be? I don't know. He's doing the off-ball stuff still?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I would say that you'd have to kind of run it by him beforehand to make sure that this is the kind of move that he feels comfortable with.
Could you do it? Could you do it like 50-50? Is there a world where it's like, okay, half our plays are throw it to DeRozan in the post, and then then some of it is just going to be Tyler high pick and roll, whatever.
I don't see why not. I don't think you all automatically have to just acquire DeRozan and feel like he's going to be your number one option. I think he could be kind of a 1A, 1B kind of thing with Tyler and DeRozan. Okay. I think you could trade shots and the looks that you get, and I think they each approach their scoring in different ways.
And you stagger them, right?
Yeah.
You start them, obviously, and then you stagger them, and you're like, all right, we got the Tyler Hero offense, and then we got the DeRozan offense, and then we close our halves. It could be a little bit about like what the Clippers did the last couple of years, which worked.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, we got the Harden Zubac pick and roll, and then we'll do that a couple plays, and then we're going to throw it into Kawhi in the low post for a couple plays, and we're just going to kind of toggle between these two things, and they managed to make it work.
What's the trade idea here?
Well, one last, it's a little. LeBron leaves in 2014, and the Heat immediately acquire Luol Deng. This is a little Luol Deng coded for me. It's a little Jimmy Butler leaves, and you go get DeRozan. It's just a little that. Which, you know what, the Luol Deng thing, obviously would have preferred to keep LeBron, but considering LeBron was left, it ended up working out. So it wasn't a bad move. Luol Deng was good here for a couple of years. But the trade idea is this: Andrew Wiggins for DeMar DeRozan, straight up. Wiggins for DeRozan, straight up. I think it makes both teams better, like right away.
I think so too.
Sacramento gets some defense with Wiggins. You get the ball back into Zach LaVine's hands. You just run LaVine's Sabonis stuff. Wiggins is doing his thing as a third or maybe even a fourth option behind Keegan Murray, behind Malik Monk, right? I think Wiggins is a much better fit in Sacramento. And then DeRozan becomes that scoring option that Miami's looking for.
I'm fine with it. You don't give up much depth. I think
no depth.
You don't give up anything. Yeah, you acquire a player in DeRozan, and his contract doesn't seem so bad. I mean, we're talking about 2 years when he's going to be probably in some decline, just given his age. But I don't think it's going to be a drastic one. Again, given the fact that he played 77 games last year, you don't see him really just falling off the cliff. So I think he's going to be a consistent guy who's going to be able to put up 20 points over the next 2 seasons of that deal. If you can't get that superstar, absolutely. I think it's a smart move. And if all it takes is Wiggins, you do it 100%. Now, if you could get something else, maybe, I don't know if you could get some draft collateral from Sacramento, probably not. It'd be nice to consider. But
if they were willing to do it, I'd just be like, hey, guys, your problem, our problem. Let's solve each other's problems here. Like, it feels too
clearly
easy.
You'd offer Rozier first, right? But I mean,
you would offer Rozier first, and then Sacramento would be like, yeah, dude, you're going to give us Terry Rozier? This is amazing with Sacramento Kings.
Scary Terry.
Scary Terry. I can't believe we're getting this guy. This is amazing. Could the Heat help bail out the Boston Celtics this summer while also getting better in the process? We'll talk about a potential win-win trade scenario after this here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by WayFair. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Look, we just celebrated Memorial Day this past weekend. Everybody's out and about. Great weather throughout the whole long weekend. You want to be able to spend some time with family. This is what you're looking for. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, well, WayFair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. WayFair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into an ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and at prices to fit your budget. So shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Go outside with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WayFair.com. WayFair. Every style, every home. We'll be right back.
Let's talk about the Boston Celtics. They've got to make some moves this summer. Jason Tatum goes down with the Achilles tear, awful injury, devastating for Boston. Kind of forces them into a tough spot here financially because they were always staring down a historically large luxury tax bill. They were going to have to trade at least somebody, one of their big high-priced players next year. Now they might actually have to trade multiple of these guys, and if they're going to treat it like a gap year, kind of just say, hey, let's kind of reset the books around Tatum and perhaps Jaylen Brown. They might even have to trade Jaylen Brown. I mean, there's a lot of options that Boston can go. The one thing that we know, they'll probably going to explore trading Jrue Holiday and probably Kristaps Porzingis first before they have to make any sort of dramatic decision on Jaylen Brown or Derek White or something like that. So let's just stick to Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis for now because these are the used car lot stars, right? Jrue Holiday, 34 years old, making $32.4 million next season, and then he just signed that contract extension, which I thought at the time was crazy that they signed him to that extension coming on. But nobody said anything because you're not allowed to say anything bad about Jrue Holiday because he's beloved and everybody loves Jrue Holiday, and I'd love to have him here. But that was a crazy extension when they signed. Whatever. Don't need to be right about that. Not taking the victory lap. It is what it is. 34 years old, $32.4 million next year. He's under contract for 3 years, $100 million remaining. It's a lot of money. Porzingis, 29 years old, which I was a little surprised when I saw that. I was like, I thought this guy was like 49 years old. Porzingis, 29 years old, $30.7 million this coming season, and then it's off the books. Expires. 1 year left. Which one of these guys do you think is, or I'll ask it a different way. Are you interested in either of these guys for the Heat? Kristaps Porzingis or Jrue Holiday?
Yeah, I think kind of strangely both, to be honest with you. And neither at the same time. Like
Okay.
this is the nature of what we're dealing with here. Like these players all have some interest and allure, I think, in adding a complementary player. Like in Holiday, you'd hope for the very best. You'd hope that you'd get that kind of defensive presence because there are still moments like that. You know, you're going to sacrifice some offense because that just comes and goes at this point. It always has for Jrue. But the defense has been mostly still pretty good. Although I think it's gone, obviously, like any player, it's going to decline as he ages. That's a lot of money.
Series.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to be paying for a guy that's you're getting some offense from, and it seemed like a better fit with Boston when they're clicking and everything's healthy. I don't think Miami is the place that could absorb a guy like Holiday and be forced to accept those deficiencies in his game.
No, that's a really good point, right? Because when you're Boston, it's like, okay, we got Tatum, we got Jaylen Brown, we got Derek White. We can run our offense through all three of these guys and feel pretty good about it. Jrue Holiday's not that guy. That's why Milwaukee traded him for Damian Lillard. And I know it didn't work out. I still think it was the right trade for Milwaukee because they just needed something else offensively.
Yep.
Jrue Holiday is not a number one option on offense. Like this isn't DeMar DeRozan even. Like this guy doesn't help Miami's offense very much at all. He could hit open threes. He can handle the ball a little bit and set the table. But I don't know that looks that great offensively, even next to somebody like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. They don't really have that number one option that can move Jrue Holiday into a 3 or 4. Jrue Holiday is beloved across the league. If he got traded to Miami, he'd be Heat fans would treat him like Andrew Wiggins. They'd be like, what is this guy? I thought he was supposed to be awesome. But if you can make another move and then also get Jrue Holiday, if you make that other move and get that superstar player and then also get Jrue Holiday, that could make more sense. But then you run into that financial wall that we're talking about, 3 years, $100 million remaining. It's just too much for me. It's almost an automatic no for me on Jrue Holiday. I just think the contract is way too much and you're paying him into his age 37 season. I don't really see that as something that makes sense for Miami, especially now that Jimmy Butler's not here. If you had Jimmy Butler, maybe you could talk yourself into it. But you can't really do that now. The Porzingis thing, I mean, we're talking about used cars. This is, my friend once bought this
I love where this is going.
He bought like this gold used truck, like not even gold, like that old beige color that cars used to come in. You know,
champagne,
they don't even sell the
champagne.
Yeah, champagne, exactly. Like that champagne color that every car in the 90s was painted. And then he bought this old used champagne truck. I don't even know what it was. And he got it for like $1,000. Or no, I don't even think he paid $1,000. I think he paid $100 for it.
Nice.
And and he mostly just like took it off like this guy's lawn for him.
Nice.
And he fixed it up and it ran a little bit. He could drive it. He's like, I drive it for fun, like 5 miles to the grocery store, and that's about it. And it was really just a hobby. It was just like a thing to do on the weekends, right? Like, I'm gonna fix this truck up and see if I can get it to run again, and that's what he did.
Right.
That's kind of Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, there's a lot to like there, I guess, in terms of a skill set that he brings, like a floor spacing big, shot blocker, etc. But he's going to miss time. Like you already have to assume that's going to be the case, and I just you're willing to take on that risk, knowing it's coming, and at the same time that he still can kind of raise your floor a little bit. And raise your ceiling to a certain degree.
More of a ceiling raiser, like a little bonus when you need him. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. I like the idea of adding a guy like Porzingis. Again, what would it take to acquire him? That might be, would they want Scary Terry back in Boston? I don't know.
You'd ask, right? I mean, that's the first thing you would do is you would say, do you want this guy? And maybe, I don't know, maybe they say yes. Maybe they just say, look, we got to switch things up. We need a point guard because we just traded Jrue Holiday or for something else somewhere else. I don't know. Probably not, though. Because they're going to be looking for salary cap relief more than anything. And Rozier would give them like $3 or $4 million in cap relief. Maybe that's enough, but probably not.
It's Duncan and who else then?
Duncan and Kyle Anderson. That's the trade. And then they would waive Duncan. So they're really just trading Porzingis for Kyle Anderson. But I mean, that's also the kind of move that they're going to have to make, unfortunately, for Boston. Sure. Like they're going to just have to take an L on one of these guys in order to, save the money that they're supposed to be saving here. I actually don't mind it if that's the trade. Because if you can get Porzingis, you wouldn't plan on starting him. I don't think you could do that, right? Just because you don't really know about the health part of it. But hey, if it's November, December, and you're like, wow, Kristaps Porzingis is like really in shape. He's really healthy. Go ahead and start him, but I don't think you could acquire him and plan on it. But even if he was coming off the bench for 40 regular season games, then you had him available for the playoffs. I don't know.
Would he accept a bench role at this stage in his career? Because
he did in Boston.
If he was hurt, that
was the thing. He was just in and out. Yeah. So, like I said, if he's healthy, then you just start. Like you just, you go.
But yeah, you have to count on him missing probably close to 20, 30 games a year, right?
Yep. That's what I'm saying. So
it's a big risk.
I don't know.
But
what I like about it though is that he's also expiring, right? Like
yes,
when Miami starts talking about, hey, 2026, we want flexibility. We've got some extensions potentially coming up that we got to deal with. Porzingis does not interfere with any of that. So there's I think if anything, there's an opportunity cost in trading the Duncan Robinson piece, because that's potentially a piece that you can use in a Milwaukee deal or a Phoenix deal or something like that. But again, the premise of all of this is if that falls through and you just need to change something up in Miami, this could, maybe this is something. I don't know.
Yeah. Would you be concerned about how it could impact Ware's development at all? Because again, you're talking about him maybe starting, maybe coming off the bench in some role in whatever games he's available for, but that kind of puts Ware in a precarious situation because you kind of want to lean into what he's capable of. From Bam's side of things, he doesn't mind. He wouldn't mind because there's another player out there who would continue to start at center, and it wouldn't be him, and that's fine. But I think just from Ware and the perspective of you want to keep letting him go through these growing pains and understand what's at stake here. I don't know. I don't know if that's the right move there.
Right, because if you're like, you know what, we got 10 minutes here of we need a center. Do we go second year Ware or experienced Porzingis? And if Porzingis is healthy, you almost feel obligated to play him. Right?
Absolutely. When he's healthy, he's a far better player than Ware is.
Obviously.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And it would probably be something Miami would have to think about. All right. I got a couple more names that I want to get to here, including Michael Porter Jr., who at first I was like, no way. Then I looked into it. Maybe not as bad a fit as people think. We'll talk about it next here on Locked On Heat. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Have a few more names here for you, David. Start with Michael Porter Jr. I don't know what the Denver Nuggets are going to do this summer. It feels like they got to try to do something. You heard Nikola Jokic in the press conference after they got eliminated in the last round talking about, look around the league, depth wins. We need to get deeper, stuff like that. He did call out Michael Porter Jr. one time during the playoffs after a game, kind of saying, hey, if you're not going to be engaged, you don't want to play, you don't want to be here, don't be here, or something like that. Paraphrasing. I don't know. He's the obvious piece. He's the guy that Denver fans are just throwing into the trade machine right now. We did talk about Jamal Murray last week. I don't know. Again, I think the first choice for Denver would be, can we turn Michael Porter Jr. into 2 or 3 pieces that get us a little bit deeper and kind of relieve us of some of these financial concerns that we're dealing with right now. So Michael Porter Jr., 26 years old. He's making $38 million this coming season, $40.8 million the year after that, and then he comes off the books. So the contract is expensive, but it's not a super long-term contract. Again, you're only getting him for a couple of years, and then he's off your books. So it could be worse, in other words. I know he's hurt now, and there's this idea that he's a super fragile player. He played 77 games and 81 games the last 2 seasons. This guy has been out there in the regular season. And then even in the playoffs, he was dealing with the shoulder thing. He was still out there. Like, that was gutsy, gritty, kind of like a thing you think that Pat Riley would look at and be like, I respect that. You know what I mean? He's a dead-eye three-point shooter. Just one of the best in the league. He's 6'10", gets it over anybody. There is no contested shots for Michael Porter Jr. Because he's so tall, because he's got that high release point. I have a trade idea here, but before I get to it, your thoughts on Michael Porter Jr.?
I don't know. I don't know why I'm so hardwired to say no chance. I don't think it's just the injury concerns. I think it's the overpay is my biggest concern. Is that's a heck of a contract, and there's a part of me that thinks that any move Miami would make to acquire a guy like Porter, you'd see him almost immediately struggle in the one skill that he brings, which is 3-point shooting, and mostly because of the lack of playmaking on Miami's side of things. Like the fact that Porter has benefited so greatly from playing with the best player on the planet does not escape me. And I wonder what happens when you don't have a Nikola Jokic making plays for a guy like that, and whether or not he's going to get those shots. I just
such a good point.
It's like, who's going to be the guy who can take the pressure off of Porter Jr. so that he could thrive in the role the way he did in Denver, and they don't have that in Miami. So I don't know. You're going to get him, and then it's like, the adage, once you drive it off the lot, well, this is already a used car to begin with, and somehow it's going to add an extra 10,000 miles by the time you set off the lot. And I don't know that Miami can afford to make a move like that.
Yeah, he was a third option in Denver, sometimes a fourth option in Denver, and he would be a guy that at that price tag it would be a little bit like the Wiggins thing again. It'd be, hey, Wiggins, you were the fourth option in Golden State. It was nice. It was work. Nobody really expected that much. In Miami, the thing with Michael Porter Jr. is we all thought he had more to his game. So the flip side of what you just said could also be true, right? Is he also never got a chance to explore those other parts of his game because he was playing with somebody that was ball dominant like Jokic and Jamal Murray. Maybe we can harness that. Now, I don't know that I buy into it because he was given those opportunities in Denver and never really fully got it. Like, there was a couple of years there, and it wasn't so much this season, but they would do the Michael Porter Jr. plus bench lineups and try to get him to do that kind of stuff. And it never really got there with him. So I would probably guess no on that. But then again, maybe Miami looks at it and says, I think we could do something with it. Again, the contract is pretty heavy. It takes you out of 2026. It's a little bit too much. It's a little too rich. But the trade idea would be Andrew Wiggins and Duncan Robinson for Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji. And the contracts basically equal out. The Denver could do whatever they want with Duncan Robinson. I actually think Duncan Robinson would be a fantastic fit in Denver. Like, I don't think that, if I'm Denver, I wouldn't get Duncan to waive him. I would get him to have him curl off of Nikola Jokic screens and just be awesome. But and then replace some of that shooting that you're losing with Michael Porter Jr. And then Wiggins, I don't know, is a 3-and-D guy who probably fits better in Denver than he does in Miami. But that's the trade. I got one more name for you. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it.
All right.
Paul George.
I can't.
Is Paul George just wing Rozier? His season was so bad and inexplicable. He averaged 16 points per game last year on terrible shooting percentages. Multiple, like, just goose egg games before they shut him down. Like, Paul George was just wing Rozier last year. But you also think that he can't, like, it's the same thing. It's like, he can't be that bad all of a sudden, right? Like, there's got to be a better version of Paul George in there somewhere. So I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but it was worth. He is a used car.
Yeah, and a heck of a lot of money, right?
Yep.
I mean,
that's
you're tying your future to that. You can't. I don't think you can even convince yourself of that. I think he's just such damaged goods at this point that there's no way. And again, in theory, he works alongside. If he's healthy, in theory, he works alongside Embiid perfectly. He's that complementary scorer. He was a 1A at one point. Miami does not have that. They need somebody to step up, and they're not going to get that from George at this stage in his career. And I don't think he wants that either. I think that you took the money, that's fine, but I think he also wanted the role, and that was to be a complimentary player. I don't think as good as Paul George has been. Yeah.
So if the trade is Wiggins and Duncan Robinson for Paul George and the number 3 overall pick, that package that is rumored to be out there, but not really, we don't know if it's out there. Because you're 100% correct about the salary. He just signed that contract last summer. That is a brand new contract for a used car. But it's such a bad contract that it might take the number 3 pick to get off of it. But if you're Miami, you could say, this is our shot. This is our shot at a big time talent, number 3 pick. We never had to tank. We don't have to do it. We bring Paul George in. We bet on, hey, maybe we can get more out of him. I still don't know that you could do it because that's it. That's the team. It's Bam, it's Tyler, it's Paul George. And you can even say, all right, trade Tyler Hero, whatever. And okay, you still have Bam and Paul George. Like, that contract is so big, it becomes so hard still, even if you just remove Tyler Hero for some reason. I don't know that you could do it. And if you're building around the number 3 pick, it's like, okay, then why not just trade all those guys? You know, because that's sort of the step. I don't know. It's crazy, but that was the idea that I had wanted to throw in.
That's the argument right there. I mean, that you're finding a way to add talent, high level talent, at a reasonable deal because you drafted him, and that you get to be able to keep him throughout the start of his career. If you feel insanely high about somebody that could be available at number 3,
right,
I think you can talk yourself into it. And
Still
you have to have some kind of assurance. Yeah.
It's too crazy. It's too crazy. It's too crazy. You can't give up
for
a
who?
3 pick.
Oh,
for the Sixers. That'd be nuts for them to do that. You would have to be getting something.
Even just to unload Paul George?
Yeah, it's too much. Not after that year. He's just like, all right, like, he's got to be better, right? Like, it's got to be better. Like, you got to at least try it for one more year, I think, if you're the Sixers. But I thought
forced to trade Embiid at some point too. It's like, and that's the reality they're preparing for.
Yep.
And this kind of helps set them up that way in a way that clears the books completely. For that though, you'd want the number 3 pick because that's your future.
Exactly.
So,
a lot of fun. What's your favorite used car if you had to take one off the lot?
Of all
the ones you talked about, yeah.
DeRozan, I think that's the one you can feel most comfortable in. He's going to get you places. You probably don't have to do a lot of maintenance on it.
Yeah,
it's not going to be flashy. You're probably going to get laughed at a couple intersections there, but other than that, I think you're going to be fine.
It's like better than a Honda Civic, right? It's like what's the one that's bigger than the Civic?
Better than the Civic?
Yeah,
I was going to say it's more like if it's better than a Civic. I mean, we're talking Miami. Like, everybody has a Honda Civic in Miami, or has had a Honda Civic at some point,
it's like a Corolla, the Altimas. It's just super reliable. You see a million of them all the time. Gets where you need to go. Yeah.
2017 Nissan Altima, right?
Yeah.
Fresh off the lot.
Yeah.
You're gonna get places.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.